We're on. Morning, everybody. Is this the day before break for everybody here, or just some, right? Everybody. It's a great day. Even if it's not a great day, it's a great day. So thank you for coming to my session. My name is Jesse Lubinsky. I'm the Director of Technology and Chief Information Officer for the Irvington Union Free School District, which technically I think we're in right now physically. Are we in our district right now? Patty and Lisa? No? No? I think we're in Irvington, even though it's Tarrytown, it's part of our school district. But anyway, so my contact information is at jlubinsky on Twitter and Instagram. And actually, if you're looking for these slides, I just tweeted them out using the hashtag EdTech Expo on my Twitter account or my email address, jlubinsky@gmail.com. So today what I'm going to do is talk about some Google tools that you may not have actually considered for use in the classroom. So I know many districts in the area have gone Google Apps, and we're all about Google Drive, especially Google Classroom, and that's something that most districts have been diving into, and that's great. But what's interesting is, as I've started talking to teachers and other educators, I've seen that there's a lot of other tools that Google's made available that aren't part of the traditional Google Apps for Education suite that teachers have been integrating into teaching and learning in the classroom. So what I did was actually pull together a bunch of those different tools and show them to you today. And I've broken them down to a few categories, so when you go through these slides later, you'll actually be able to go directly to those tools through the links in the presentation. One other thing that I did, I've actually been presenting this session for a few months now, and one thing I noticed was I'd have these great conversations afterwards with teachers where they would say, oh, I can't wait to integrate that tool, and I'd be like, oh, awesome, tell me what happens with it. Then I go to another place and present this, and I hear the same thing, and I realized it's great that I was finding out that teachers were using all these tools together, but the teachers weren't able to kind of connect with each other and find out the great uses of, that they were able to integrate with all these tools. So what I've done is at the end of the presentation, you'll see a link to a Google form. If you're interested in seeing how some teachers are using these tools or connecting with other teachers that are interested in using these tools, you can just fill out that form, provide your contact info, and you'll actually get an automated email back with a link to the response sheet. And that sheet will actually have the contact information for all the educators that have filled it out so far. But just know that when you fill that out, that means your information will become available to anyone who then fills out that form later on. But at least give you a good opportunity to connect with people who are using these different types of tools. So the name of this session, Going Down the Rabbit Hole, came from Alice in Wonderland. But does anyone know where this picture of Alice came from? It's actually a special graphic of Alice. Sometimes I have one person who knows it. So this is from the Alice programming language. So when I was in the classroom, I was a math and computer programming teacher, so it's near and dear to my heart. But going down the rabbit hole is just another way of talking about all those different ways that we can consider using Google in ways that we haven't before. So moving past, the first set of tools I'm going to talk about are tools that kind of let us travel the world without leaving our classroom. And one interesting tool, My Maps. How many of you are familiar with My Maps? You're going to hear me ask this almost every slide. How many of you are familiar with? Well, what's interesting about My Maps is it's integrated directly with Drive. So if you were actually to go to File, New, and create a new file, whether it's a doc or a sheet or a form, what you notice is that if you click More, it'll actually pop up with Create a New My Map. And what that does is it actually will bring up, and I'll show you an example of one that my friend Jeff made. It brings up a map, but lets you pin locations throughout the world and annotate them with text and visuals. So my friend Jeff's been traveling, doing these Google presentations, and what he decided to do was actually pull together a map of everywhere where he has presented in the past year. So you could see that he's created custom little icons, which shows if you were to zoom out and look at the whole country, that he's annotated all the different places that he's been. So one way that we're starting to use this in our schools is our 4th and 5th grade school, our Main Street school. One of their goals for this year is global education and citizenship. And so through that, they've been doing things, and actually I just posted a picture on Instagram yesterday. We did a mystery hangout with a class in Illinois using a framework where each class took turns asking each other questions and guessing where the other class was and using the map to kind of narrow down the focus of where they thought it was, and we saw which class was able to guess quicker. Correctly based on the information they provided. So what we're starting to do is we're starting to pull together one of these My Maps using all the locations of the places that we've communicated with. So we did a hangout with a soldier stationed in Korea. We did We've done a lot of these mystery hangouts across the country. We did an author hangout with another class that was in Argentina. So we've communicated with a lot of people around the globe and a lot of other classes. But what we want to do is find a way to visually communicate that to our community and show, wow, we're talking to people all over the world. And rather than just kind of give it to you in a list form, it's really more powerful when we're able to show some pictures from those events to go along with some text and additional resources. Anyone ever seen Google Cultural Institute before? Yeah, love, right? It's like the best, it's amazing. So it's so amazing, I could probably spend the full hour just on this and showing you Google Cultural Institute, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna talk quickly through it. Google Cultural Institute is, trying to think of it, in its most general form, a collection of resources online, right? So we've seen plenty of websites before which collected artifacts and then had annotated text about it, but it wasn't as rich as the Google Cultural Institute. Now, I actually found this cool article online where someone had pulled together 15 of their favorite resources. So if you click on the link in the slide, it'll actually bring you to a Mental Floss article which highlights some of those. And I'm gonna show you one in each of the 3 major areas that are part of the Google Cultural Institute. So it's World Wonders, Historic Moments, and Art Project. Now, I've always wanted to go to the pyramids, but generally not considered a safe zone, so try to avoid the pyramids. But what I can do is not only research artifacts, Wi-Fi problems, not only research artifacts, but actually do 360 views of the pyramids and start to walk through there. Trust me, it would be, you guys would all be oohing and eyeing right now if it was on the screen. It would be amazing. So you'll see when I have the Giza necropolis here, I could actually choose to view all of the different items they have. So I can start to research these artifacts one by one, click on each one, pull up additional information, or actually go to a street view of the pyramids and actually look around as if I was standing at the base of the pyramids. But the cool part, which you probably already know about Google Street View, is that I can use these arrows to navigate around and almost walk around the pyramid. So you could actually navigate around. Now, that's great for World Wonders, and it's awesome to be able to go to places I haven't been before. But one thing that's really cool is, how do I use this in a classroom setting around something that my students might be learning? And one thing that I remember learning about when I was younger was the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And we all know John Wilkes Booth, Ford Theater. But that's really kind of all I knew, right? Someone shot Abe Lincoln, and then there were all those weird stories about, like, they took him down the block to, the doctor, all that stuff. Well, here, what they've done is not only can I actually see all those different artifacts, such as the actual Derringer used, the life mask they created of Abraham Lincoln, see all those resources, but they actually have museum view of the actual theater where it occurred. So think about the conversation we can have with our students when now it's not just a matter of talking about events that occurred, but I can actually start to show them these are the actual settings where these things took place. So it occurred up in the balcony, and start to show them the actual sites of some of these places, because chances are we're not going on a field trip to Ford's Theater anytime soon. Now, the art project view is actually pretty cool in the sense that what they've done is, we were in museum view, which is essentially street view, but inside when we were in Ford's Theater. Well, they've captured that museum view for actual museums throughout the world, including the Museum of Modern Art. So if I were to click into the Museum of Modern Art, I can actually start going fishing around and looking at each of the exhibits. Now, as I go to museum view, notice on the left-hand side over here, it actually shows me one of the floors where I'm on, and shows me, based on the projection, where I'm looking. So I'm standing at this point in the room, looking out towards where that view is showing me. So as I start to move around the room, it'll actually show me, based on the floor plan, where I'm looking around that museum. But even cooler, as I start to look around at different exhibits, these black boxes allow me to click and see more information about the various exhibits in the museum. So one of a few ways that I'm going to talk about where it's almost like a field trip within a field trip, because we don't have to take our kids out and get all the permission slip signed and all that other great stuff, but we could actually do it from inside of our own classrooms. One particularly cool thing that they did as part of Cultural Institute was they added a performing arts section. And that performing arts section was unique because what they did was take 4 areas: music, opera, drama, and performance art and allow us to basically get 360 views of real-time performances happening. So if I were to do the orchestra one,
welcome to New York City, home to the world-famous Carnegie Hall. Tonight, you will step on stage with the Philadelphia Orchestra as Yannick Nézet-Séguin conducts a very special performance of a beloved classic from Peer Gynt in the Hall of the Mountain King.
So I'm going to continue, and it starts off a little slow. But notice, we're in a 360 view on stage. Again, on the, if I look at the venue map, I could see where we are and where other cameras and views are located. So let's say I don't want to be in the woodwinds. Let's say I want to see what's going on with the strings. I hope I'm clicking on the strings right now. So I click on a different area, and while the performance is actually going on, it will allow me to switch locations. And notice that I could use full 360 video to start to move around to see what's happening. So think about how a music class would actually use this. So a lot of times that's not a class that we normally talk about in terms of implementing this kind of technology, but to be able to be on stage with a professional orchestra, seeing the way that they're playing during a performance at Carnegie Hall. Very powerful stuff. I usually forget to close that slide and then I keep going and I wonder why the music's still going on. So anyone familiar with Google Lit Trips? So Google Lit Trips is particularly interesting because it started off as an action project for a Google Certified Teacher. So a Google Certified as part of the Google Certified Teacher, now Google Certified Innovator program, all participants are required to pick an action project, essentially, and see that through. So what one teacher did was say, you know what, it was interesting how in many books a journey takes place, and wouldn't it be great if we were able to annotate that journey using Google Earth and kind of show different artifacts along the way. So when we think about some classics like Grapes of Wrath or Night by Elie Wiesel, right? Those were journeys where someone was traveling over a period of time, and what they did for Night, for instance, at the concentration camps, at the different locations, they were able to annotate it with video, 360 panoramic images to show what it was like there, historical documents. All of that was embedded in a KMZ file, one of those Google Earth files. What I found particularly interesting was I had known about this for a long time. But when I started to pull together this project and I knew about the Google Lit Trip site and I went back to it, I assumed, okay, maybe it's still active, maybe it has a couple more things. It wasn't just a couple more things. They had actually taken pains to enable teachers to have students create their own Google Lit Trip files. So you could see if you were to go through, there's actually a ton of resources by grade level where you can actually go through and start to look at the different books available and download those files to then use with Google Earth. So great resource when doing any type of study of a book if the resources are available on Google Lit Trips. Google Cardboard. Yeah, there's the nodding, so we all know Google Cardboard. This is actually a picture of my daughter. I didn't force her to smile while I took that picture because I was showing her. It was the first time I'd brought a Google Cardboard home. I was like, you've got to check this out. It's so cool. I know she's always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower. Fortunately, in the Google Cardboard app, that's one of the first locations that they had in there. So I pulled up the Eiffel Tower. She looks in, and she's like, oh, my God. I'm at the Eiffel Tower. It's so amazing. But cardboard, and I know the New York Times had that giveaway, so many people were first exposed to cardboard through those free. Anyone get those with the New York Times? The free Times, right? The free. Two people who still read the New York Times. That's cute. In print. People still do that? So with that cardboard viewer, it allows you to see three-dimensional locations. And what's even cooler is, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but it's not just the cardboard app you could use, but the Google Street View app. So anything that Street View is available on, you just pop it in and you're looking at Street View. One location I love to show is if you actually go to the Empire State Building, they actually placed a camera on the top point of the Empire State Building, so you get the full panoramic view of New York City, one of my favorite things to show. The other cool part, you saw that 360 video that was available in the performing arts thing we just looked at. Well, if you look for 360 videos on YouTube, those are now available. So now it's not just still photo content that's available, but it's also 360 video. Now this is one of my favorite things. How many of you are familiar with expeditions? Or did anyone have expeditions come to their school? Yes? Most awesome thing ever? Most awesome thing ever. Okay, so for this one, normally this presentation is like an hour, but because I have 45 minutes, I'm crunching it down, so a lot of the videos I show are still here, but I'm not going to show them. But I am going to show this one because this is the big one. So this is Google Expeditions. I feel like let me show you the video, and then I'll talk about it.
You could pick anywhere in the world that you'd want to go. Where would you want to go?
I would like to go to the moon.
Thailand,
Ancient Greece.
India, to Nigeria, my homeland.
One or maybe all of the 7 wonders of the world. When you explore different places, you have the chance to actually learn something new.
You want to be able to show the kids that there's something outside of your community that you could go to and learn from, and that there's other places you can visit.
All right, so let's do our objective and we'll talk about the lesson for today.
We're gonna take a field trip to Verona, Italy to see the place where Romeo and Juliet lived.
I'm going to take you on this field trip under the water. Okay, you guys ready? Pick up your devices.
And look in your cardboard.
What is that?
I see a shark.
It allowed us to go somewhere we wouldn't normally be able to go.
Are we in China?
This is the Great Wall of China.
We got to see the place itself so we could actually understand what she was talking about.
How long would it take to walk the length of the Great Wall of China? So much more enriching than just showing them a picture or just having them read about it.
This device can actually make us go to places that we've never been before.
It brings the lesson to you.
You have to see it for yourself to believe it.
There's so much other places to see, so you know that it's never going to end.
And by the way, if you thought it was funny watching the kids kind of look around with the cardboard, when you see 30 adults doing it, it's even funnier. So the first time I actually saw this was, they announced this at ISTE last year, and because I was a Google Certified Innovator, I was allowed to go and test it out with the Google team. And that's exactly what it was. So the location we were allowed to, or we were kind of selected to go through was the Great Barrier Reef. So what happened was we actually started out on the beach, and we're looking around, and what we could see is the various places on the beach and look around, and the teacher, or the person who was playing the role of the teacher, had an iPad, and what they would do is when they were ready for us to go to the next location, they would actually press on the iPad, and we would go to, all of a sudden we're underwater. The cool part is that what they were able to do is they were actually able to fixate our attention on something. So we're all looking around, and if you would see exactly what the kids, half the kids are looking this way and half the kids are looking this way. And there were 2 divers in the scene we were looking at. I saw one, and she's like, can you find the other diver? And after a couple seconds, she's like, well, look over here. And all of a sudden, we saw an arrow, and what you see, I watched another group do this, all of a sudden you see everyone's heads like fixate on one location, and that enables teachers to pull all the students' attention into one place and discuss that. What's cool is that every different place within Expeditions has multiple different settings. So when you're saying we're going to explore the Great Wall of China, it's not just here's the Great Wall of China, moving on. It's really different places along the wall, different opportunities to talk about the history. What was interesting is we had the opportunity to speak with the person who came up with this idea at Google, and he was a former teacher, and he used to take his students to Storm King upstate, and he said that Field Trip Day was his favorite day of the year. And his least favorite day of the year? Field Trip Day. So both of those days, because of all the work that would be involved in getting all the permission slips, making sure everyone could go, getting the lunches together. So in a way, he always said it made him feel like the work wasn't worth it until he got there. And then for that brief time that he was there, it was worth it. So was there a way to capture the great pieces of the field trip without having to deal with all that extra work? And that's kind of where Expeditions came from, because my guess is that field trip to the Great Wall of China probably not in the cards for most districts locally. I don't know if your budget looks like our budget, but I'm guessing that's probably not something that's going to happen for most of us next year. So what are the ways we provide students with those authentic learning experiences to get a chance to actually see what other people see who are in those countries and in those locales? The other thing I really love about Expeditions is, and this is kind of, I guess, personal for me in the sense that I'm from Queens. And anyone familiar with 5 Points in Queens? So it was one of the most famous graffiti installations in Long Island City, and it was recently torn down. Those of us who are from Queens and remember it, very upset. what was cool is when Google Expeditions first released their list of places that they were going to have available for classes, 5 Points was one of them. They went in there and actually did all the photography ahead of time so that now, even though it's gone, we know students are still going to be able to learn from street art that was done in New York City, even though it's no longer there. So really great stuff. There's more information to sign up now. I know that they've been doing the tour with Expeditions, so you said great. Anything you want to share that I haven't talked about since you were in it with the kids? Right. Oh, we're going to get to that in a second. But I'm glad that's like a launching pad to a slide coming up. But so in our district, we've actually talked about, we've had teachers, even though we didn't have the team, the Expeditions team come and do the demo, we had teachers that already want in. So they're ready to write a grant to our educational foundation for a set. And I think what we're envisioning is, it's not the type of thing that we think kids will be using every day. So I don't think it's the type of thing where we're like, every class has to have a set, which I know I've heard other people say, and I'm like, I don't think so. I think our school has to have a set, and that ultimately all of our classes would benefit from having accessibility to that technology. So I think it's great. I think everyone that sees it finds the value in it. We'd love to see the pricing. Google has yet to release that, so we'll know more soon. Hopefully, if you want more information, the link is there. So Tour Builder is actually cool. Remember when I showed you My Maps? And My Maps was a way of annotating a map with a bunch of different locations. Think of Tour Builder as like one step up from that. So Tour Builder actually allows you to take a map, annotate it, but have it tell a story in a linear fashion. So it was originally created to help soldiers tell their stories of kind of where they grew up, where their first, their education, where they were deployed. And so if you go to, and again, because we're a longer presentation in a shorter amount of time, I'm not going to go to all the sites I would normally go to. But if you go there and look at some of the demo tours they have, that's many of them are soldiers kind of telling their story with text and images supporting their story. So one way we talked about using this was, again, it was the same building where we're doing the annotating of the places, the other schools we've talked to around the world, is using this as a way of teachers to tell their class's story to parents and students from the class next year, to say that here's our school, here's where we've gone on trips, and kind of use video and image embedded in there to kind of tell the story of the class from the year before, because it gives them a little familiarity with the new class that they're coming into. So again, very cool tool. GeoGuessr. Oh, I love that I get to show this and people don't know this. Okay, so GeoGuessr is a tool that Google created, and I'm going to jump right in because we're going to talk about how we can customize it later, but it's almost more fun if we experience this. We're going to be a single player collectively. Let's try to behave and maintain our composure when we feel strongly about a particular answer. Okay, so we're going to do single player. Now what it's going to do, if I were to scroll down, there's specific locations I could pick. It put us somewhere in the world. Oh. Sometimes we're on a street. I don't know. Like sometimes it's like, oh, this is pretty easy. Okay, this doesn't help us very much at all, but we're not. We're gonna go for it. The closest a group has come with me to getting this in one of these sessions is 136 miles. So anywhere within the whole world, and they were able to get within 136 miles. But we weren't here. So let's. So I notice it looks like there's a car up here, right? I can move up the road. So this is the type of conversation I would have with my class. So what are the clues we can get from the environment to try to tell us where we are? Could it be the different types of foliage I see? Could it be, everyone's always like, license plate, we want license plates. Well, could we tell what side of the road this car is driving on? That's also something we use as a clue. One time we did this and we walked a little bit up the road and we were in town. It was awesome that all of a sudden we were in town. So we have a vineyard, okay. It looks like that car is driving on the right side of the road. It's not a wide road. It's a very narrow road. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. We have one that. Okay. So what I would do is we would go onto our GeoGuessr screen and make a guess at the location where we think. Does anyone have a guess where we think we are? We're in France. Everyone else is like, we're not in France, but we'll just go with that because we don't want to say where we are. Any particular? I don't know France well. Bordeaux. Is that it? Is that what we're talking? Okay, does anyone know where that is? I know the name. I don't know the where. We'll zoom in a little bit. Okay. Oh, we'll just say there. Fine, good. Let's make a guess. So, okay, so we were in Romania. That was my second guess. That would have been my second guess. But he said France. I don't want to. Who am I? So, okay. So, now that's great. But if I go back to the slide, so GeoGuessr, if I go back to that main screen, we actually have the ability to pick. They have pre-canned games for particular countries, cities, and so forth. But what if I'm studying something very specific? And what if I know what I want kids to do, but it's not one of the pre-canned games I have there? Well, they also have a tool called GeoSetter, which allows me to create a custom game based on 5 locations that I pick. So maybe we're studying a particular area, and I want to pick 5 locations that I know, and then I'm going to have the students guess based on the area that we're studying. Well, I can pick those 5 locations here, and it will give me a custom GeoGuessr URL, which I can then use in my class to have them guess. So great way to research and test students' knowledge about areas that you're studying. Romania, like I ever would have guessed that. Okay, so we're already familiar with Google Street View. We've taken a look at it in a couple of other tools. But we mentioned before about those areas where students want to create their own custom expeditions or something like that. Well, there's a lot of places where there aren't roads, right? It's like Doc Brown said, where we're going, there are no roads. That was my Christopher Lloyd. And for that, they've actually created Street View treks. So you can see these backpacks that they're wearing with the 360 cameras. So Google has actually been loaning this equipment out to people who put in proposals for going to photograph places which are kind of off the beaten path that I wouldn't normally be able to go view. So if I click on Street View treks, some of the locations are locations that actually, and I've been to one, so I didn't go to Angkor Wat, but I went to Misan, which is the same architecture, but there are no roads there. They drop us off, 5 kilometers away, and then it's a hike into the jungle to get to some of these places. So you can see these are all locations that we would normally not be able to go to, but if we click on one, so Nepal's interesting, because not only is it about the trekking through the mountains, but it will actually give you some of that information like we were able to get in Cultural Institute with those artifacts that are in place around the region. So we can go see what a library looks like in Nepal and then start to take a look at what the trek looks like through the mountains and the photography that they were able to capture. This is not the photography, by the way. This is the parachute. So if I were to click down, notice it starts to give me information about the different locations. So if I click down into one of them, I could actually see video and artifacts as well as to look around the different locations where I would not be able to reach by car. So very cool. So don't always assume that because it's not on a normal street that I wouldn't be able to actually show my students what a particular area looks like. Hmm? Into the Street View. So I know it would for some of the Street View, the traditional Street Views. I actually haven't tested that out with the trek. Partially because usually I know the address of where I want to go. I usually don't hammer down by clicking down. I usually put in the address, so I wouldn't know the address of Nepal Lake. And go down, I'm not sure. I haven't tested that out. Okay. The other cool thing with Street View treks is they've actually started to put that together as a collection for oceans. So if you take a look, they have Google Street View, but for the various oceans. So for those of you doing units of science that are studying some of the different areas of the world in terms of aquatic life, you can start to take a look at what that looks like in the various oceans of the world. So Google Treks, not related to Street View treks. This is actually something that a teacher created. I leave it on here because it's still there and there are units created, but I almost feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, that she made it a per pay model. So I don't love suggesting that one as much, but essentially what she did was create something where they were creating a product around Google Maps with embedded, similar to Tour Builder, with embedded content using Google Maps. Now, one today is interesting in that it's not a traditional tool you would think about using in the classroom. Is anyone familiar with this? It's actually an app. It's a phone app. And what it does is every day, Google has a different cause. So it's almost like the Sally Struthers. You can feed water for a whole family for $12 in a month. It's that kind of stuff What's interesting about it is the types of conversations it could bring on within a class about the different issues. We talk about digital and global citizenship, the different types of conversations we could have with our students based on what's in the app. So I'm not, whether they raise money at a bake sale and then, you talk about a cause and say, well, is this something we want to donate $1 to? That's the kind of conversation you could have around that. What's interesting is there's an additional social component that allows you to, if you share out, like let's say I contribute $1, I can share it out to friends and say, if you contribute $1, we'll match that as well to raise money for a cause you feel strongly about. But it's just interesting to start to bring to the attention of students some of those real global issues that are occurring all over the world. So connected classrooms is interesting, and I leave it in here because I believe it to be defunct, but I don't know for sure. Because if you were to go to the Connected Classroom site, it doesn't say anything, it doesn't say it's down. It'll say, oh, we just did one in October. Here's the one we did in October, here's the one we did in September. If you look a little closer, you'll see it was October and September of 2014, not 2015. But the reason I leave it in here is because I do think this is important in terms of usage of another Google tool, Google Hangouts. So essentially what Connected Classrooms was that they were bringing in experts, astronauts, authors, and connecting them to classrooms so that other participants within the Hangout were different classrooms from around the globe. So you could sign up to participate directly or just watch, as you would with any Hangout. And I leave this in here because even though Connected Classrooms might not still be active, the idea behind it, the fact that we could use Google Hangouts in our classroom to bring in authors, to connect with other classes, like I talked about the mystery Hangout before, that's really important, right? It's a really important way to break down the barriers and the walls of our classrooms and be able to get our kids talking with make them part of a global community. So you could see the ones that they did do are still archived on the website, so you can actually go there and see. So if you did want to, it's difficult to get an astronaut, I think, for your classroom. But since they already did one hangout with an astronaut, is it not difficult to get an astronaut? Or?
NASA has a digital learning network, and once you go through the steps, and they have it for K through 12, the entire program is phenomenal. Through NASA, is a really secure network, so you have to deal with your IT department. They do hangouts all over.
So the big takeaway from this session is astronauts are readily available for you whenever you need the astronauts. They are there, so we don't need that. They love Hangouts. Okay, so how am I doing on time? Because I know it's up. Okay, this is the 5-second version. Ready? So tools for creation. I'm going to flip through really quickly. Camp Google was something that was created last summer that using standard things from around the house allowed students to collect digital badges for doing cool projects. Made with Code, an initiative designed to get female students to start coding. My only issue with it is that I feel like all students should be coding, so I think everyone should be coding. Okay. Google Story Builder, funny Hall & Oates video, check that out. Google Science Fair. So the winner of Google Science Fair last year was a girl in a high school who developed a detection method for oh my God, what's the sickness with the melting eyes and the Ebola. So she developed a street test for Ebola. She was like 15 years old. You know what I was doing when I was 15 years old? I was like playing Nintendo and watching different strokes. So needless to say, they're doing some amazing things. Check out what they're doing because you might want to get one of your students involved. Google SketchUp is almost like the free version of CAD. I cheated a little bit because Google sold it, but we actually do use it. Our 4th graders did it with with creating a floor plan if we were to redesign the school, what would it look like? They created floor plans, and then we made 3-dimensional models of it. Our goal for this year is to then take those 3D models and print them out using a 3D printer so they actually have a tangible evidence. So in the conversations we were able to have by just making them 3-dimensional on screen was like, oh wow, maybe a hallway shouldn't go where there are no rooms on both sides. I know. All right, most of this other stuff you can just check out on your own. It's all on the slides. Go to Twitter, pull up the slides. I do it short. See, I didn't have that much. We didn't miss that much. The full version is so much better than the short version. But one thing I will leave you with. So one tool, if I just want to make sure I promote and this is cheating because it is Google Apps for Education, but if your teachers are not currently on Classroom, really make the effort to have them explore what Classroom can do. I really feel like it's a game changer. Thank you very much.